Hi, I'm Debbie and welcome to Book and Bujo, where I talk about all things books, bullet journals, and stationery. Today, let's talk about all the readathons that I'm participating in August. Let's start with the shortest to the longest. So we'll start with Buzzwordathon, which is a year-long readathon put on by Books and Lala. And she gives us a word prompt every month, and then we have to fit a book to go with that prompt and then read it. So for August, the prompt is body parts. So you have to have some kind of body part in the title. And I chose Men-at-Arms, Arm, by Terry Pratchett, and it's the 15th book in the Discworld series. Next up is the final book support group that is put on by Steph from Steph Loves. And I will leave everyone's channels linked down below so you can check out their announcement videos and all of the other great content that they give you every week. The final book support group runs from August 7th to August 13th, so it doesn't last the whole month, it's just a small portion of it. And there's 7 different prompts that you can do. So the first prompt is to finish a final book, and for that I plan to read Gods and Monsters by Shelby Mahurin. It's the 3rd book in the Serpent and Dove series, and it's the last one, so I'll be very excited to finish this series off. The second prompt is to continue a series, and for that I plan to read Restless Slumber by KJ Sutton, and that is the 2nd book in the Fortuna Sworn series. The third prompt is have a spinner wheel choose your book, and I will put the video here so we could see what I got. I put a handful of books on there that I have on my TBR and my Magical Readathon for books to read. And let's see what I got. Looks like I will be reading Willow, and that is by Marika Tamaki. Prompt number 4 is a veteran sequel. So a series you have started a while ago and you never quite got to the 2nd book. I have a few of those. So I put 2 on this list, and we'll see. I'm hoping to get to both, but if I just get to one, then that's great. And the first one is Daughter of Witches, which is the 2nd book in the Lyra series by Patricia Weird. And the second one is Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert, which is the 2nd book in the Brown Sisters trilogy. And I read the first book of both of those 2019, 2020, right in there. So it's been 2 or 3 years and I haven't continued the series. I've wanted to continue the series because I loved the first book of both of those, but just never quite got around to it. So this is the month. Prompt number 5, longest series. And the longest series, I'm not sure if that means the longest running series, like the largest has the most books in it. I'm taking it as the longest as in the most books in the series that I'm reading, and that is the Discworld series by Terry Pratchett. And I will be reading Men-at-Arms and Soul Music this month. There's also a little novella that comes right before Men-at-Arms. It's number 14.5, and these are 15 and 16. And that one is The Theater of Cruelty, and I think it's like 4 pages long. So if I can find that, I will read that. If not, then I will just be reading these 2. Prompt number 6 is to borrow a book. And well, I got a pretty big pile of books that I just borrowed from my library. And these are 4 of the options that I have for that, because these are all series. So we have The Witches of New York, and I believe this is the 1st book in a series. It looked like it was a series. Correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments, let me know if it's a series or not. But this is an option. And then I also have Middle Game by Shauna Maguire. This is another option. This is the 1st book in the series. I think it's just a duology. And then we have The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan. This is also the 1st book in the series. And then lastly, I have The Hammer of Thor, which is the 2nd book in the Magnus Chase series, and all 3 of these are on my actual TBR, so I will most likely choose one of these, but for now I'm gonna say Middle Game. So that's my choice for now. We'll see what I actually read. And then prompt number 7, which is the last prompt. It is most anticipated. So I have a couple on, there's quite a few I could put on the list here. But the first choice is Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson, because that is one I want to read. Also Dawn Shard and Rhythm of War. The other book that I think is one of my most anticipated, because I started the first book a ways back last year sometime, and I really want to get to the second book, but I had to read the first book in another series first for the chronological order, and that is The Hammer of Thor, which is Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard. So this is the second book in the Magnus Chase series, but for chronologically, they recommend you read the first book in Magnus Chase, The Sword of Summer, and then you read the first book of the Trials of Apollo series, and then you read this one, and then you read the second book in the Trials of Apollo series, and then the third book of Magnus Chase, and then the third book of Trials of Apollo. So that's what I'm trying to follow. So this is one of my most anticipated. I love Norse mythology. I love Greek and Roman mythology, but it's a lot more well known to me anyway, and don't always get quite as much on the Norse mythology, so I'm excited for it. So this is my TBR for Final Book support group, as well as Willow, Restless Slumber, Take a Hint, Danny Brown, and Daughter of Witches, which I do not have physically or on ebook. Those ones will be audiobooks. So wish me luck. Hi, Future Debbie here, because I totally forgot about another readathon for August that I typically participate in, and I don't know why I didn't mention it. So it's the Full Moon Book Club's Readathon by Jan Agaton, and again I will leave her channel linked below with the announcement video, and it runs from August 1st to August 13th. I think it is normally a week-long readathon, and she extended it so it's 13 days instead, which is nice. So there's 4 different characters you can choose from, and then there's 3 prompts for each character, so you can just choose one and do the prompts for those. 2 of them are reading prompts, and the third one is a non-reading prompt. So the first character is a skeleton, and that is to read a hardback, and for that I plan on reading Middle Game by Seanan McGuire. Sorry, it's very sunny. I'm trying to avoid the sun shining through the window, so Middle Game, there we go, by Seanan McGuire. And then next up is a book between 206 and 300 pages, and she chose that odd page range for a specific reason. So between when you're a baby, you have more bones than you do as an adult, because they start to fuse together as you grow. And so there's a little bit less, but basically there's an average of 206 to 300 bones in a person's body. So that one actually wasn't too hard. I did have quite a few that were between 206 and 300, because I have a lot of 200-page books, especially with Magical Readathon coming up. And that is Earth Spells Are Easy by Renee George. And that one is 224 pages. And for the non-reading prompt, it is to wear your favorite graphic tee and then share the picture on your socials. And make sure you tag the Full Moon Book Club Readathon. And then we have The Vampire. First prompt is blood in the title or on the cover, and I plan on reading Court of the Undying Seasons by A.M. Strickland, and there is definitely blood on the cover coming down from the vampire's mouth. And then we have the favorite supernatural character, and for that I will be reading Angel and Spike Volume 2, because I love Spike. Yes, James Marshers did such a great job with that character, and one of my favorite supernatural characters, most definitely, Spike. And then the non-reading prompt is to drink a red drink, or a drink out of like a red container, so a red mug, a red cup. If you got a red Solo cup, that's perfect. Some fruit punch, some red wine, whatever red you want to be drinking. And then we have the pumpkin character, and that is to read a nostalgic spooky book. And for that, I will be reading Buffy the Vampire Slayer Willow, and very excited to read that. I really love Willow's character, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer just brings me back to when I was binge watching the series, and yeah, just love that series. So the second prompt for pumpkin is someone else's pick. And for that, I am choosing Men-at-Arms by Terry Pratchett. And that is for the read-along for literary diversions around the Diskin 800. And so she picked this for this month. So I'll be reading, there you go, you can see the title now, Men-at-Arms. But you can't see me. Well, there we go. Working with what we have for lighting right now. And then the non-reading prompt is to have something pumpkin flavored. So this one will be a little more interesting because I'm actually allergic to pumpkin. So I'm trying to figure out how I can work this prompt without having any reactions. So I'm actually thinking maybe, I think I have a pumpkin candle and maybe I will light that while I read. Or I'll just make my husband have it because he likes pumpkin and is not allergic, so maybe we'll do it that way. But yeah, I think I probably do a pumpkin candle, or I may have something that's like pumpkin spice scented of an essential oil that I could put on as well. One of those two options, yeah. And then the last character is Devil. So fire involved, so fire or burn, maybe there's fire on the cover or in the title, or the book is about that. And so I am choosing, let's see, where's the best spot for this? Clara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. Is that better? Sorry, the lighting is horrible this morning. Okay. So, Clara and the Sun, because the sun is most definitely fiery. Big fireball in the sky, right? Okay, for the second prompt for Devil is a morally gray character. And for this, there's a whole lot of books I can choose from. I'm trying to find some that are a little bit smaller because it's only 2 weeks. We'll see what happens. But I am choosing Restless Slumber by KJ Sutton. And it's the second book of the Fortuna Sworn series. And I am pretty sure most of the characters in there are kind of morally gray. Just from the first book, that's my feeling. Yeah, so I think that one works well. And then the non-reading prompt is to read past your bedtime. So I would love to be in bed by 9, but I typically don't make it until about 9:30. So she says, like, if you normally go to bed at 9, if you could even just read till 9:01, depending on what your sleep schedule is like. You could stay up till 9:30. You could stay up till 2 a.m. Whatever works for you. So I am going to try to stay up till 10 and read, but we'll see, and maybe 9:45. We'll see. So those are my books for Full Moon Book Club. So, oh goodness. So these are the books that I have physically and my one ebook for the Full Moon Book Club and the 4 audiobooks to go along with it. So good luck. I plan on reading at least 2 of these, and then we'll go from there and see what happens if I can get some extras in during that time period. So the next readathon I'm participating in is the Camp Counselor Readathon, and that is with Books and Bops. So make sure you check the link down below to see the announcement video by them. So the Camp Counselor Readathon runs from August 1st to August 31st, so it's the full month. And you get to choose between 2 different teams, and the team that wins is the last team standing. And it's kind of a horror thriller style readathon that takes place at a camp, and you're camp counselors, and you want your team to win and not succumb to the serial killer. So there are multiple different prompts. You can do 1 book per prompt, but you could do the same prompt multiple times. You just have to use a different book each time you use that prompt. Each prompt has a specific point value awarded to it, and whoever has the most points at the end, of course, is the team that wins. But the first prompt is a book that takes place during summer, and for this I plan to read Across the Desert by Dusty Bowling. And this one just looks so fun and cute, and it takes place in Arizona, so I have to read it because that just sounds great, and it's in my backyard. Next prompt is a book that takes place at a summer camp. Now, I have read some of books that take place at camps, but I don't have any currently on my TBR or on my physical shelves. So I may end up skipping this one. We'll see how the month goes. The next one is a gritty mystery, and I have a few books that have mysteries in them. It's not the main genre, but I'm not sure how many of them are gritty. I had originally thought of doing 24 Hours in Nowhere by Dusty Bowling, and if you didn't know, Nowhere is a town in Arizona. We actually have Nowhere, Arizona. It's the name of the town. It's kind of fun. And the book takes place in that town. But it's not really a gritty mystery. It's just a mystery. I have Chain of Iron that I want to read, but I wouldn't call that one gritty either. I'll have to think about this one a little bit more. And then a true crime novel. I do enjoy a true crime novel here and there, but I did just read one in June, so I'm not really up for reading another one, so I'll probably skip that prompt as well. Oh, but a book that takes place at summer camp, that one's worth 10 points, so that one's a biggie. So if you can find a book for that one, that's a good one. And then the true crime novel is 8 points, where the other ones are 3 and 5 points. So a book set by a lake or body of water, that one is 5 points, and I currently don't have one, but I don't know. So I think once I start reading some of the books that are on my actual TBR from TBRopoly and from the Magical Readathon, I may find that some of them take place near water or set by a lake. So some of these I will kind of fill in after I've read the book, because I'm not really sure yet if it fits or not. And then a book recommended by a teammate, and this one is 10 points. And there is someone on my team. I am on, I believe, Drew's team, and they are reading Men at Arms by Terry Pratchett as well. So I can use this one for that prompt, so that's awesome. And then a buddy read a book with a teammate. I haven't seen a buddy list come out yet for the readathon, but if I find a couple books that other people are buddy reading, then I will definitely jump on board with that. Next one is a book released in June, July, or August, and this one's worth 8 points, and I just started going through each book, seeing when it was released, and the first one I came to that was released in June is Angel and Spike Volume 2. So, and that is by Zach Thompson, so I will definitely be getting to that one. A book with summer in the title, and this is 8 points, and unfortunately the book that has been on my TBR that has summer in it, I read last year, so. And that was The Sword of Summer by Rick Riordan, which was the first book in the Magnus Chase series, so I guess I'll be skipping that one. A book from your favorite genre. This is only 3 points, but it is very easy. And I will be reading The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan, and I'm very excited to get to this one. I actually have a whole lot of books that I could put in this category. Warbreaker, Rhythm of War, Dawnshard, Middle Game, quite a few others, because of course fantasy is my biggest genre, or my favorite genre, and it's the one I read the most from, so most of my TBR is from fantasy, so I can actually submit that one for 3 points, that prompt, multiple times. A book between 300 and 350 pages. It took me a while, but I think I did finally find, I think there was 2 that ended up in that category. I chose Clara and the Sun by Kaza Ishiguro. Right, so the next prompt is worth 5 points, and it's published during your favorite season. And this book was published in December. I love winter, and I was born in winter, so very fun. And that is The Last House on Earth, and that is by Robert Marcus Jr. and Ryan Marcus. I think this one is more of a dystopian. I was kind of hoping this one was going to be more of a gritty mystery, but I think it's just a dystopian. So next prompt is a book you've been avoiding like a killer, and that one is 8 points. And for this one, I chose Gods and Monsters by Shelby Mahurin. I loved the first book. I gave it, I don't know, 4.5 stars, somewhere in there. The second book, 3 stars, very low 3-star. So I'm like, where is this last book going? I didn't like how the last book ended and the direction it was going, so I have been avoiding this book for like 2 years. So I'm going to give it a try and see what happens. But I mean, the cover is stunning. The cover on all 3 of these books are beautiful. All right, and then we have book over 400 pages. I actually have quite a few I could choose for this one. I think Justice of Kings is also over 400, but I chose Restless Slumber by K.J. Sutton, which is the second book in the Fortuna Sworn series. And then lastly is a new to you author, and it's 10 points. Book over 400 pages is also 10 points. But new to you author, and I chose Court of Undying Seasons by Adrienne Strickland because I have not read from her before, and that is a book club pick for the Full Moon Book Club with Jan Agaton. All right, now for the readathon everyone is waiting for, and that is the Magical Readathon Autumn Equinox, and that starts in August 1st. But since we did so well last year, much better than we did the year before on how many books we read, how many pages we read, and all of that, everyone gets to start 3 days early if you would like, so we can start on July 29th if we want. And I will probably take advantage of that because there is a book that fits a prompt in the Magical Readathon that is on my TBR for July. So if I would just wait and start it on July 29th, it gives me enough time to get at least 50% of the way through, if not finishing it, and still be able to count for the Magical Readathon. So I am totally taking advantage of that. So she always does some amazing graphics. So we've got the syllabus, which is 2 pages. And of course I have 2 characters, and they are both double majors because I just like to do everything. I want to try it all and do it all, and yes. So first up we have Ariel, who would like to be Master of Elements as well as a Feywild cartographer. For the spring equinox here, we had to fulfill these prompts here. For the autumn equinox, we have to fulfill these. Now, you have 3 different levels for each of the different classes that you take. So you have the O, which is ordinary, you have the Q, which is qualified, and then you have the D, which is distinguished. So for O, you only have to read 1 book. For Q, you have to read 2 books, and for D, you have to read 3 books. And she has the prompts for each of those here. So for Master of Elements, I need to have a D in Elemental Studies. When you go to Elemental Studies here, then you have the prompt you have to read for the O, the Q, and the D, and then, so this is basically the class work, and then this is the prompt that you have to fulfill. All right, so let's get started. Master of Elements, a D in Elemental Studies. So for the O in Elemental Studies, it's Element of Earth, a book with the word Earth in the title. And for that, I will be reading Earth Spells Are Easy by Renee George. Don't know a whole lot about this one, but it does say Grimoires of a Middle-Aged Witch, Book 1. So it is the start of a series. All right, so for the Q is Boulder Stance, and read a book over 500 pages. I have a lot of those. Let's hope I get through all of them. But I will be choosing Dust of Dreams by Stephen Erickson, which is the 9th book in the Malazan Book of the Fallen series, and I think it's like 1,280 pages, so definitely over 500. And then for the D in Elemental Studies, it is Lava Snakes, and you have to have a snake on the cover. Of course, Gods and Monsters, because there's that beautiful snake there in the middle. The color of this is beautiful. It's all white and gold. Snake on the cover, Gods and Monsters by Shelby Maher, the 3rd book in the Serpent and Dove series. All right, for my next class is an O in Shapeshifting, Formation Fangs. Read a book with vampires. For that, I will be reading Angel and Spike of Volume 2 by Zach Thompson. And then we have an O in Animal Studies, and for that, it's Introduction to Domestic Creatures, Pet Pick. You can use hers on Instagram if you don't have pets, or you can use your pets to pick a book. So this prompt does come up again, so I will go ahead and show the clip of Walter choosing 2 books for me. Okay, wait. Okay. So the first pick was, so I had 4 books that I was choosing from. So I chose 4 books for Walter to choose from. And the books are, the first one is Chain of Iron by Cassandra Clare. The second one is Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. The third one is Dawnshard by Brandon Sanderson. And the fourth one was Zombie Cherry, which is the first chapter, and that is by Shoko Konami. So he chose 2 books for me. Well, he ate all 4 snacks, but he did pick 2 books, and then he looked up at me, and then he went to eat the rest of his snacks, which was adorable. He had no idea he had to just choose 2. So that was cute. But for Ariel, she'll be reading Dawnshard by Brandon Sanderson. Next up is Astronomy, and Ariel needs to get an O, and that is Moonsong Ritual. Word in the title from the name of the last song you listened to. And actually, the last song I listened to is actually kind of a playlist, but it was acoustic guitar. So the title was Music to Wake Up To Without Coffee, and so I chose Soul Music by Terry Pratchett, which is the 16th book in the Discworld series. And then the last class for Ariel to get her Master of Elements qualifications is Acue and Restoration. So for O, the first book is Induce Sleep. Start a book before bed. She'll be reading A Prisoner in a Dungeon Deep, which is a poem by Anne Bronte. If I get a chance, I will read the complete poems by Anne Bronte. I think it's only like 82 pages, so I do want to try and actually get through all of them, but I will definitely be reading A Prisoner in a Dungeon Deep, as I have the audiobook for that one. And I always love with poems, I prefer listening to them to hear the lyrical quality to them instead of just trying to hear my own way of saying it, because I'm not always that great with the rhythm of poetry when I speak it to myself. So it's nice to hear it, and I feel like you can just soak it in a little bit more, especially if you can kind of hear it and kind of read it at the same time. And then Q for Restoration is Relocating Pain. Read a book in a different spot each time you pick it up. And for that, I plan on reading Theater of Cruelty by Terry Pratchett, which is the book that comes in between the 14th and 15th book in the Discworld series. So after Lords and Ladies, but before Men at Arms, and it's only like 4 pages, so totally taking advantage of that because I could just sit in one spot and read the whole thing and then not have to worry about moving for next time I read it. Yes. All right, so that's Master of Elements. So there's a total of 8 books to be read for that one, for Master of Elements. Now for Feywild Cartographer, which is super fun. Look at that map down there, it's beautiful. So intricate, lots of stuff going on in there. So there's 7 books to be read for this class. And for the Autumn Equinox, you need an O in Elemental Studies, so that was the same as the other class, but technically you're not supposed to double up on prompts. So if I have to, I will, but I try not to. I try to read separate books for all of them. And so O in Elemental Studies is again Element of Earth, so book with the word Earth in the title. And Ariel will be reading Wings of Earth, and that is by Eric Michael Craig, and it is part of the Echoes of Starlight series, and it's the first book. So it'll be a fun little sci-fi. Next up is an O in Animal Studies, Intro to Domestic Creatures, Pet Pick. So the second book that Walter picked for me was Zombie Cherry, Chapter 1 by Shoko Konami. So I'm very excited about this one. It looks like it's super fun, and it's like 45 pages, but it'll be super cute. Be great to put in between all of those 500 plus page books that I always have on my TBR, just as feeling like I'm accomplishing something, but it's entertaining and relaxes the brain a little bit in between the high epic fantasies. Next up is an O in Astronomy. Astronomy, Moon Song Ritual, word in the title from the name of the last song you listened to. So, of course, from the Elemental Studies, I had listened to other things after that. This one I had listened to Chainbreaker, and so I chose Chain of Iron by Cassandra Clare. Next up is an O in Alchemy, and that is Stone to Copper, read the first book in a series. That's usually pretty easy. There's a lot of first in series out there. And for that, I'll be reading Justice of Kings by Richard Swan. And this is the first book in the Empire of the Wolf series. And this is also a book club pick for the Howling Pack with Wild Sasha. Next up is the only class that's not an O, so I have to read 2 books for this one. It is a Q in Inscription, and so the O is Glyph Tidy, book from your end of year TBR, which is great because I still have a lot of those that I haven't read between the series I want to read, the 2023, the 23 and 2023, and all the other books that I have on my watch reads, my D20 list, and all of that. So there's a lot to choose from. For that one, I decided to go with Middle Game by Shauna McGuire. So this one is on my 23 and 2023 lists. It's on my series list of ones I want to read. Not the top ones, but it is on there. So, and this is one that's I've been wanting to read for a while now and just haven't gotten to it. So Middle Game by Shauna McGuire. And I think it's just the Middle Game series. I know there's 2. I think it's a duology. And then the Q in Inscription is Wards and Shields. Shield on a cover or shield in the title. This one was a lot more difficult to find. And luckily I have a full list that's pretty much up to date. I think it may be, I don't have this last week on there, but it's pretty much up to date of all of my books on my Kindle, so I can just go in there and do a quick search for the word shield, and I actually had quite a few. I was trying to find some that were short, of course, because there's a lot of books on the TBR, so trying to keep a bunch of them under 300 pages, so we'll see how that goes. So I chose Shield Maiden. There's a shield on the cover and in the title, so Shield Maiden Under the Howling Moon, and that is by Melanie Karsak. Don't know anything about this book, but it had shield in it. All right, and then the last class for Ariel for the Feywild Cartographer is an O in Demonology. And for Demonology, it is Intro to Low-Level Demons. Read the first book you see on Instagram, Goodreads, YouTube, or other Twitter, Facebook, whatever social media platforms you are on. And this one took me a little while. So I was scrolling through Goodreads, and there's a lot of books that I don't own, so, or can't get from the library yet. And so I'm scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling a few more times. And then finally I came to Artificial Condition by Martha Wells, and this is the second book in the Murderbot series. So I'm excited to continue in that series. I started that one probably for the spring equinox in 2021, I think, is when I read that one. So I'm happy to get to the next book for the autumn equinox this year. All right, next up is Godseer, and that is for Karasu. And so these were all the books he had to read in April, and these are the autumn equinox classes. And the first one is an O in Inscription, and again we just had that one with the Feywild Cartography, and that is Glyph Tidy, book from your end of year TBR. And for this one I'm choosing Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert. This has been on my TBR for a very long time, and I need to get to it, so this is my chance. This is also on my 23 and 2023. It's on my top 10 series I want to finish this year. And then we have a Q in Restoration. And so the O is Induce Sleep, Start a Book Before Bed. And for that I will be reading Clara and the Sun by Kazu Ishiguro. So I'm excited to try this one out. I've heard a lot of good things about it. So Q in Restoration, and that is Relocating Pain. Read a book in a different spot each time you pick it up. For this one, I will be reading Mental Fitness by Paul Wood, and it is the nonfiction book pick for the J&R Book Club this year with Jashi Curran, or this month. And there's definitely lots of places for me to be able to read that one in. It's a little bit longer, but it's nice to be able to like sit at my desk, sit at the dining room table, sit in my comfy chair, be able to take notes if I want to, and so that'll be fun to read that one. Next up is Q in Conjuration. So O in Conjuration, because you have to read the O first before you can get to the Q. So it's Ghostly Etiquette. Read a court or royal book. And for this I will be reading Restless Slumber by KJ Sutton, which is the second book in the Fortuna Sworn series. And then Q in Conjuration, and that is Spirit Communications, a book inspired or set in a different culture or country than yours. And for this, I will be reading The Way of Eden by Philip Chase, who is a fellow booktuber, and give him some love and go find his book. I can't wait to read it. Let you know my thoughts. Make sure you check out his booktube channel, and I will leave it linked down below for you. All right, O in Demonology. Intro to Low-Level Demons. Read a first book you see on Instagram, Goodreads, YouTube, or other. And again, I just kept scrolling. You know, I found Artificial Condition, then I just kept scrolling until I came upon Saga, Volume 4 by Brian K. Vaughan. So I'm very excited to continue with the Saga series. It's great so far, nice sci-fi romance. Last class is a D in Lore, so you have to read 3 books for this one. So O, Tale of the Guild, bookseller's recommendation. For this one, you could use a bookseller's recommendation. So if you go into a bookstore and they have those recommended tables, or you can ask an associate that works there what book they would recommend, and you could choose that one. Or you can also get a suggestion from someone from your library. And what I chose to do is there are 2 librarians that, or at least people that work at a library that are booktubers, and so I decided to go through some of their videos, their top or favorite book videos, and choose one that they recommended. So for this one, for the Godseer course, I chose Hardback Hoarder, and she recommended The Witches of New York. I'm very excited to get to this series, and I will leave her channel linked below as well so you can see her thoughts on the book and the other books that she recommends. She really highly recommends Godkiller, but I was not able to get my hands on that one yet, so Witches of New York it is. Q in Lore, Cursed Cloaks, clothing on the cover. And I'll be reading Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson, and in the book cover that I have, the girl's skirts are all just swirled around her. It's very beautiful. All right, and then D for Lore, The Underworld 101, read a horror book. And for this one, I will be reading Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Willow, and that is by Marika Tamaki. And then lastly, we have Scribe, because Karasu really would like to be a scribe. And this one is actually the shortest course, which works well because he has a really intensive one, and so this one is a little bit, we'll say, easier in quotes, because not necessarily easier, but it's a little lighter coursework. 7 books total for this one, and we start with an O in Elemental Studies, yet again. Almost everyone had to take Elemental Studies, and that is Element Earth, a book with the word Earth in the title. And for that, I will be reading The Last House on Earth, and that is by Robert and Ryan Marcus. The cover on that in real life, in color, is really cool. It looks like a real desert scene. Everything is all browns and tans, and then you have like a house that everything just looks bleak. Very dystopian. Although it looks like, almost looks like that's a little pug. I don't know. Looks like there's a critter sitting there. Next up is a D in Inscription. To start off with, it's Glyph Tidy for the O in Inscription, and that is book from your end of year TBR, and for that I'll be reading Daughter of Witches by Patricia Weird, which is the 2nd book in the Lyra novels. Also on my 23 and 2023 list, and books I really want to read, series I want to finish, all of that, all of the end of year TBR lists. Next up is Q in Inscription, and that is Wards and Shields, shield on a cover or shield in the title. For that, I will be reading Traitor's Blade by Sebastian de Castell, and that is the 1st book in the Greatcoat series. And if you look at the red cape that comes out from the gentleman in the front of the book, there is an army painted in there, and some of them in the army have shields. And then D, Advanced Penmanship, very important for a scribe. That is to read a book that is not a debut, which is helpful because most of my books are not debuts, so I can have lots to choose from. And for that, I will be reading Men at Arms by Terry Pratchett, which is the 15th book in the Discworld series. Then O in Restoration, Induce Sleep, start a book before bed. For that, I'll be reading A Dream Within a Dream by Edgar Allan Poe. Then lastly, we have to get a Q in lore. And for that, O is Tale of the Guild, bookseller's recommendation. And for this one is the other booktuber that also works at a library, and that is Darian Reads, and she has recommended Heartstopper by Alice Oseman, and I can't wait to get to that one. And then after I read it, I can then watch it on Netflix. And then Q is Cursed Cloaks, Clothing on the Cover. So I'll be reading Hood the Lieutenant, and that is by Nicole Adrian. So that is all the coursework that I have to do for Aurelium Academy for the Autumn Equinox to become a scribe and a godseer, as well as a Master of Elements and a Feywild cartographer. But wait, there's more. Of course there's more. So we have the option of getting a little inkling, which would be a lot of fun. So you have a chance to get an inkling, which is super fun, and she came up with this amazing graphic. There's 6 different prompts on here, and it's kind of a connect the dots, so you have to go, you have to have a book that aligns with this prompt, and this prompt. So it's kind of fun. You got to think about it a little bit, which is always interesting. And so you can have one book that fits every single prompt, or you may have to have a different book for every prompt. I was actually able to fit 2 in there. So I chose Court of Undying Seasons by Adrian Strickland, and that is between 400 and 450 pages. It is also one letter appears twice, so Court of, so you have the O in Court and of, you have the U in Court and Undying and Souls. So that works. And then we have released this or last year, also fits that prompt. And then blue on the cover, also fits that prompt. And then you have a start at night, which is easy to do. And then that's kind of where it stopped. There was one prompt that it didn't fit with all the rest of them. So for that one, I had to have read from the author before. So for this, I chose Hammer of Thor, which is by Rick Riordan, which I can also start at night and is also between 400 and 450 pages. So it can't just fulfill this little circle, it also has to fulfill the 2 that it touches on either side of it. And so Hammer of Thor fits all 3 of these, and Court of Undying Seasons fits all of these ones on this side. So very ingenious. I love how G came up with this year. Very fun. And then, instead of doing side quests this season, we get to have supplementary qualifications and opportunities. So let's start over on this side. So we've got the Bog Cataloger, which I think fits Ariel pretty good with her Feywild cartography. Yeah. And for this one, you have to read a book by the water, or a book that has a body of water on the cover. And then you also have to watch an animal documentary. So they're not just reading prompts. So there's a reading prompt, and then there's a do something else prompt, which is fun. So for this one, this is the one I want to start in July, so I can finish it off my July TBR and then also have it for my Magical Readathon TBR for August. And that is Grey Sister by Mark Lawrence. It's the 2nd book in the Book of the Ancestor series, and it does have a body of water on the cover. And then we have the Sandship Engineer Certification, which looks so cool. And I think that would also help Ariel for her Feywild cartography, being able to get to the different places that she needs to map out. But also would be cool for the scribe. Karasu and Ariel work together quite a bit because she draws out the maps, but then he does a lot of the intricate writing that is on there. So it's a good thing they're friends. So for this one, you have to read 2 books with a desert setting, and then you also need to doodle a ship. Now, optional, you can share that doodle online, but you don't need to. So the 2 books that I want to read for this one are Across the Desert and 24 Hours in Nowhere by Dusty Bowling, which both takes place in Arizona in the valley. So that is the desert areas, and they're short. They're both under 300 pages, so that's a bonus. And then it's always fun to doodle. It doesn't matter if it looks like a ship, but just doodle, enjoy, relax, let your creative mind just take over for a bit. All right. Apothecary Keeper. Ariel was interested in herbology, as was Karasu, but they both went different routes instead. Having the Apothecary Keeper would be kind of fun to kind of scratch that itch of wanting to work with herbs and potions and such. And it would be nice for Karasu to be able to practice his penmanship and his scribe duties with the different labels for the different bottles. And Ariel would be able to source some of the products for the herbs and flowers and things for these through her Feywild cartography. So you need to read 2 books with plants on the covers and find, document, and take pictures and share at least 5 different flowers online. So this could be on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, on the Discord channel, wherever you happen to post your socials. And then of course tag Magical Readathon for that. So the 2 books I'm going to read for this is Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Volume 6. There is plant life on the cover. Is in the suburbs you have a shrubbery and some trees, and there's some shrubbery on the cover. And then also Long Live the Elf Queen, and there is leaves and flowers all over the cover. Last but not least, and that would be Dragon Riding License. Look at that beautiful dragon. Oh, beautiful. And for this one, you need to read 2 books with dragons, and then watch a movie or a show with dragons, which that should be pretty darn easy. The first book is also on my 23 and 23 books to read and the top 10 series that I would like to finish this year, and one I just really would like to get to because I love the first 2 books, and that is Of Dawn and Embers by Kyoko M, and it is the 3rd book in the Of Cinder and Bone series. And there are 5 books, and then a novella just came out 2 days ago. I think it was just a couple. I think it came out on July 22nd, so maybe 3 days ago. Today's the 25th, so very excited to read that one. So, and then the second book is 0 Hour, which is the Order of the Dragon series, the prequel to that, so it's book 0.5, and that is by Tina Glasnick. So that comes to 43 books, if I actually read them all. 44 if you count Rhythm of War, which I didn't really put in anything. It's in it's my August and September book, so I can wait till September on that one. But yeah, so 43 books, and just my regular TBR is 5,082 pages. Just the Magical Readathon, so my Readathon books, comes to 8,474 pages. So that is a total of 13,556 pages. I think the most I've ever read is 12,000 or somewhere around there, just over 12,000. Definitely under 13,000 pages. So we'll see what happens. I may switch up some of these books to smaller books later in the month as we go on. So I have quite a few that are, well, if I do Rhythm of War, I have at least 2, that's 2 books over 1,200 pages. If I do those 2 books, I have 4 books over 500 pages. Yeah. So it'll be interesting. I'm just going to start reading and see what happens. Start with my TBR and kind of go from there. But I do need to keep in mind that I have to do read my O book. I need to make sure I have my O book first before I finish my Q or D books, just in case I don't finish. I at least get that level of my class done, because if I read a D book first, it doesn't count by the end of the month. But if I read my D book first and then I read my O book and then I read my Q book, it all still counts and it's fine. But if I just read the D book and that's it, then I fail my class. So I will try and read everything on my TBR first that aligns with all of the O's and then go from there. So wish me luck, please. If you've read any of these books, let me know what your thoughts are, and if there's 1 or 2 that I should start with, or if there's a couple that you think I should save to the end. Either they are that worth waiting for, or let's wait to the end, and if I don't get to them, then it doesn't really make any difference because they're okay, but they're not amazing. Yeah. I would love to find out what readathons you're participating in this month, and And if you are participating in a readathon, leave a watch or some kind of clock emoji down in the comments for me so that I know that you are going through this with me. And I would love to find out what your TBRs are. Are there a couple of books that you're really looking forward to this month? Let me know. So please like, comment, and subscribe if you wanna, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss any updates or other videos from me, because you'll want to find out how I'm doing in my TBR for Magical Readathon, right? And until next time, keep reading. Bye!